Hello, this is going to be a quick overview of some of the different tools in Affinity Studio that you can use for digital pattern drafting for sewing. Quick disclaimer, I am not an expert in Affinity or in pattern drafting. I'm actually quite a beginner when it comes to sewing pattern drafting, but I've really been enjoying using this free software, and I thought that if I could create a video sharing what I've learned so far, it might inspire others with more expertise to continue to make resources and just improve the amount of knowledge that's out there. So if you're not familiar with Affinity, it is a completely free program that's now owned by Canva, and it's a really good alternative to software like Adobe Illustrator. Another cool thing about Affinity is that it has multiple sort of studio layouts in it. So this Vector Studio is designed to have a collection of tools you'd find in like an Adobe Illustrator, a vector editing program, while the Pixel tab will show you a collection of tools like you'd find in a Photoshop or a pixel editing program. And you can actually make your own studios, which is awesome. So I created a pattern making studio. You can just go in here and click on Create Studio and give it a name, give it an icon, add your own icon, and you can customize and move all of these options to your heart's desire. So once you get a little bit more comfortable with the software, I would recommend that you look up a tutorial on creating your own studio and go ahead and get the tools that you use most often at easy access. But if you're just starting out, most of the tools we'll be using you'll find in this Vector Studio tab. Okay, now that we have, so once you've downloaded, you've installed Affinity, open it up, how do you navigate? Well, first thing is by clicking the center mouse wheel, and that will allow you to drag the canvas across the screen. I can also hold down the control button and zoom in by scrolling on my mouse wheel. Heads up, I'm on a Windows computer. All of the keyboard shortcuts I talk about are going to be on a Windows. If you really quickly Google something like Affinity Zoom shortcut, it'll come up with the Windows and Mac equivalent. So that's another great resource for finding out more. Okay. This button right up here, the Move tool, and V is the shortcut for the Move tool. This will allow you to do things like select items, click, and drag those items. So this can help for relocating things around your canvas. Speaking of a canvas, I already have one open. You can actually have different tabs in Affinity, which is really cool. I'm going to go click the New button, and this is where I can go ahead and set a custom document size. So I will want to work in inches, and I like to work in a document that's like maybe 50 inches by 50 inches for pattern drafting, but it'll depend obviously on what you're drafting. Then I can go ahead and create this document, and now I can flip between them. So you can have multiple things open at a time, which is really helpful when it comes to getting a pattern ready for digital printing, which I will talk about in a different video because I love how easy it is to do that in this tool. Now that we've talked about the basics of navigation, how do you actually make a pattern or make a shape? I have found most of the time, you're going to be using the pen tool, but probably the easiest way to make a shape is by using the shape tool. And when you click on it, and you can right click on it to see the options come up again, you can choose what kind of shape you're making. So I could draw a rectangle here. And I'm going to call your attention to this panel on the side here. This has the color and stroke settings. So this is the outline, this is the fill. Whichever one of these is in front is the one you're changing. So I could change the outline to red, and I could change the fill to transparent. I can also go to this stroke tab and do things like change the width. Oops, I have to have it selected first. That would help. I can go ahead and change the width and even change it to a dashed line if I wanted. This option down here is the advanced settings for the dashed line. So if I want a larger dashed line, I'll change this first one to 10 and this first one to 10, and it'll now be a very large dashed line. For the purposes of the rest of this video, I am going to set this to black, and I'm going to set the stroke back down to, let's say, 2 points. So I'll go ahead and delete this. And now I'm going to create a curve using the pen tool. Let me click off of this. So with the pen tool, you set one point, then you click the next point, and keep going. Oh, I still have it set on dotted. With this curve, if I click and drag it will create a looping kind of curve shape. And if I want it to do a sharp angle after that shape, I can click again and it'll go to a sharp angle. And whenever I am done with my line, I can just click escape. And this will put this into a line. This second tool here, the node tool, and again, this is my custom studio. I put these where I wanted them. If you're using the Vector Studio, move is here, node is here, pen is here. If I click on this with the node tool, I can then adjust, move these around. I can drag these handles to change the shape of it, and I can click on this to pull it into place. I'd add a point and then pull it. So I found it can be really helpful to, if you can't get the curve to be exactly what you want when you're drawing it for the first time, you can just sort of click and drag and adjust and move. Along with this pen tool, I can click, hold shift, and click again. And now I've got a straight line. If you see down here, this will show you the length of the line. So if I want this to be exactly 6 inches, I can go ahead and do that. And I can rotate this line. Now, as I rotate this line, the length is staying the same, but the width and height are changing. So I can go in and set this at 4.5 inches, and it will just automatically update. So this can be really useful for changing the exact length of a line. Another thing that I found that can be really helpful is clicking on the item and clicking Enable Transform Origin. And this can be a little bit funky. Oops. Where is that origin? I accidentally dragged it here. I have been running into some bugs with this. Like sometimes it doesn't work on the lines. Not sure why. But you should be able to click Enable Transform Origin. Yeah. And this right here, this little dot that, see how it was up to the side before? Again, don't know what's up with that. It should be in the middle where the transform point of the line is. If you start with a straight line, you move this line, this dot over here. Now, when you rotate the line, it'll rotate from this origin point, from one end of the line. So this can be really helpful if, for example, you have something here and you want this to match up with something else to make a specific angle, you can do this. I find it's pretty helpful to enable the adjust the origin point on one line and then copy and paste that line. So as you draw patterns in this tool, you are going to end up with quite likely a lot of items. So this is where grouping things together can come in handy, as well as merging different lines into a single layer. So this is the layers panel. You can select a layer and double click to rename it. I'm going to call this bodice block. And you can click the eye icon to change the visibility. I can also put 2 items in a group and drag them together or show and hide them as a group. So maybe I want to hide this bodice block for now. Now with these, well, actually real quick, with groups, that allows us to also change our auto select functionality. So right now it's set on default. So I can double click, I can move an item within a group, or I can single click to move the whole group. You can actually change this so you'll either only select objects or only select individual groups. And that can be really helpful once you have a lot of items on the page. With these 3 lines here, I may want to combine these together into a single curve. So if I select multiple of them and click on this vector menu, I have 2 options. I can either join the curves, which will try to connect them, pressing Ctrl-Z to undo, or I can just merge the curves. So now they're together in one curve layer over here, but they're still 2 separate curves. So that can be really helpful for just keeping your workspace a little bit cleaner. I mentioned before how we could tell the length of a straight line by looking down here in the transform panel. And that's not really the case for curved lines, but there are two ways that we can go ahead and measure those lines. The first is this measure tool, and I can click on a point and click on another point, and it will tell me how long it is from one point to another. So if I wanted to measure from here to here, it's 2.7 inches. These do not persist, they go away. You can also use the area tool to hover over a curved segment or a curved line. So this whole line here, the length of it is 23.853 inches. This long one right here. You can see it's bolded and highlighted, whereas this one is 4.658 inches. You can also cut lines in order to make it easier to work with. So actually, I'm going to go back to the node edit tool. And if I hover over a line and hold down Control, you'll see this little X come up. I can go ahead and delete that line segment. Like this. And now if I were to go back to the area tool, it will only show me the length of these individual pieces right here, or the area inside. I don't know why that's showing up as 0 inches. I think it's because it's not filled. So this opens up some of our options for actually manipulating the pattern. I'm going to go ahead and delete this group. So I have this bodice block here, and if I want to go ahead and change the darts, I can do that by cutting this curve that I have and adjusting. So I'm just going to go ahead, copy and paste this and make a backup. And then I'm going to go into this bodice block, and I am going to use the pen tool to, I don't want it on that layer. I'm going to use the pen tool to draw a line. We're going to go right through here and down to the bottom, like I was cutting this pattern. And now what I can do is I can select both of these, and I can use these sort of merge options here. So each of these will do different things. Again, the help manual has a lot of really good information on it. But if you click divide, it will now have, if I close the backup, it will have split this into multiple pieces. So what I can do here is go ahead and delete that section. I probably want this one and this one to be one piece. So I'm going to merge those curves. And now I have kind of two parts of my thing that I can move. And what I can do is I can move the transform origin, because I still have enable transform origin selected. I'm moving that little crosshair. I can move that to the center, and this will actually allow me to pivot this dart around there. So actually, I may want to adjust that transform origin a little lower so it's actually on the point. And this will allow you to kind of do a slash and spread method. Then you can go in and you can either adjust the points, like you could bring that down, or you could redraw, trace over it using the pen tool. I know that this is a really terrible example of organizing darts in any way, shape, or form, but I thought that this was a good way to show what you can do to split blocks up and kind of readjust. Other features that are pretty helpful, if you want to mirror something, you can go ahead and click this transform and flip it horizontal or vertical. This can be really good as you're drafting if you want to like flip a line segment onto either side or do anything like that. This can help make sure it is exactly the same on both sides. Then one other thing that I absolutely love is creating seam allowance with this contour tool. This is, again, if you're using the vector space, it would be here. But in my pattern making space, I'm going to click the contour tool and I want to add a 0.5 inch seam allowance. And this will automatically add the seam allowance in a little bit of a blobby way around it. So I'm going to change it to sharp. And then I'm going to click Bake Appearance. And now this seam allowance is its own line that I can go in and adjust. So I can now manipulate the points. Maybe I want to take out this one. I want to bring this one down. Or actually, really, I can just take that out and kind of adjust here. Yeah. You'll have to play around with it, get it right as what you need. But that's a cool way to really quickly add seam allowance to existing pattern pieces. And that's about all I've got in this. Like I said, I'm still a beginner at both digital pattern drafting and Affinity Studio. I think there's some really cool things people could do with this program, and I can't wait to see what you come up with.